Okay, picking up where we left off on page 387, we're getting ready to do linking between two different workbooks. So I'm going to go here, for example, for Fred, and I'm going to calculate Fred's hours, his total number of hours. So I'm just going to do a normal kind of a sum thing like we always do, right? And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Now, since I just copied these worksheets, the numbers are going to come out the same. At least I certainly hope they will. So I grab this and and yoo-hoo! Now I want to go here and I want to do a sum of those two numbers. One on this sheet, one of the numbers appears on another spreadsheet. So I'm just going to pretend like I don't even know how to do this, and I'm just going to do it the normal way, okay? Without even thinking about it, I'm just going to type, you know, I'm going to type this cell plus, and go over here and type this cell, and then hit the return. And it worked. Now let's look at this cell reference. This one is weird. Now this is the last of the cell reference types. Yay! Hooray! You don't have to remember any more cell reference types. Hooray! And here's the way it looks. While I'm over here on workbook 2, it's assuming that everything is going to be in workbook 2. But when I want to talk to some other worksheet or workbook, then I have to give it the workbook name. So book1.xls in square brackets. Now since I'm talking to another workbook completely, I need to give it the full address, so to speak. You know, I need to give it the workbook, then the worksheet, and then the cell. Now admittedly, they didn't have to do the $ thing for absolute addressing, but I can kind of see in their defense, you know, clicking onto a cell, I can see how they can say, well, you know, better safe than sorry kind of a thing. So this is a legitimate cell reference, okay? It's a cell reference to another worksheet. Now I will tell you something that's kind of weird. So let me, I'm going to save this, okay? I'm just going to hit save, make sure clicking on workbook 2. And then I'm going to open I'm going to close these guys down and then open just workbook 2. All right, just to show you what's going on here. So I'm going to close this guy. Sure. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to workbook 2. And it comes up and says, warning, warning, Will Robinson. Would you like me to automatically go in and use those links? So the machine has figured out that you've linked two different worksheets together. Okay, now it has given even though we didn't see, we always saw was a little square bracket thing, behind the scenes it knows the full path. This was C:users, Emmett Gray, documents, chapter 7, book 1, okay? So it knows this stuff. And I'm going to say, sure, go right ahead. All right, I'm going to go ahead and expand this guy back. So, you know, the point of this is whenever you link two sheets together, first of all, you're going to get a security warning because it is possible that the target for your link could be controlled by somebody else other than you, right? It could be like on a network share and somebody's perhaps put a macro virus on there. And so just because I'm opening a spreadsheet on my machine sitting in, you know, on my computer, it links to some, you know, spreadsheet someplace else where I don't have control over. So it's a very good idea for them to come up and say, you know, warning, warning, Will Robinson, you know, do you really want to do this? And if you look at this and go, I don't have a clue who that is, then I would probably say no. If you do know it is, like, oh yeah, I know who that is. That's cool. Then yeah, I was expecting that. Then you hit the yes button and you're good to go. Now, part of the problem, and let's close this guy again. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to go to workbook 1 and I'm going to rename this guy. So I'm going to go here and this is going to be workbook 1A. Okay, cool. Now let's go fire up workbook 2 one more time, and it's going to say, dude, you got a broken link. You were referring to something called workbook 1, and I don't have anything like that. So what do you want me to do? So don't update basically means just forget about it, okay, dude? Just let it go. Update is going to basically say, I don't know what you want. You know, I can't update it. Thank you for asking, but I can't do it. Do you want me to edit the links? And I say yes. And it says, here is what I'm asking for. And then where is it? What's wrong? Well, the source is not found. What do you want me to do? Well, I want to go and fix it. I want to change the source to the new version. Okay, so this unfortunately, I mean, I love linked worksheets and workbooks. I love them. However, they are a pain in the ass because you got to make sure that you don't touch anything. You don't move it to another directory. You don't delete it. You don't rename it. And I spend an awful lot of my time trying to figure out, particularly like, you find a spreadsheet that had like, FY 12 consolidation. You go, oh, that's exactly what I want. I want that old data. I need to look up what our profit margin, was in FY 12. So you click on it, and all you get is can't find this, can't find this, can't find this, can't find this, and you go, oh, geez, is it even worth it? Okay, let me see if I can find this. Where did that? Oh yeah, we moved that from this spot to that spot. It takes you forever to go through. Now, perhaps it was stuff that you used every day. That wouldn't be the case. But the historical stuff that's been out there, essentially it takes an awful lot of planning to use links between workbooks. You have to plan on putting them in a permanent location and leaving them the heck alone. Okay, so very common problem. All right. The next thing they talk about on page 390 is sharing a workbook. So if I have a workbook and I want to have multiple people to be able to go in and make changes. So think about that concept where we had the timesheet. So I put this on a network share. And so Sally goes in and updates her time. Okay, and then Fred goes in and updates his time. And they're all working on the same worksheet. One worksheet up at the top. Okay, and so they call this collaboration. There's a pretty good description of it and how it works on page 390. And setting it up is actually not that difficult to do. You go to the review tab here, and there's a thing in here called share workbook. And then it basically says, are you ready to do this? And go, yeah. And one of the things you have to do is if you're gonna, you can share workbooks that has no write permissions whatsoever. That's perfectly normal. But if you want to allow them to do editing, then you can tell I want to allow track changing and allow merging. So normally you'd hit this little checkbox that says allow changes by more than one user at the same time. In other words, Sally could be entering her time at the same time as Fred, at the same time as Bob. That's a cool thing. Now, the problem is what's actually happening behind the scenes is some bizarre magic. It looks to them like they're all editing the same document. And if there is no issues, there are no collisions, where no one steps into anyone else's doors, no one changes the same cell, then you're home free. However, if Fred goes over here to Sally's sheet and makes a change, well, then we're going to have a conflict because two people have tried to change the same cell. And so you, as the owner of the document, have to go through another step, and it's called the merge step. So the odd thing is that the merging, we have the share workbook thing going on. We have this little track changes and all sorts of other things like that. But there is no merge feature here on the toolbar. Why? I'm not exactly certain. I guess because it's not all that common a thing. So in the book, they show how you go into tools and you can go in and add to the toolbar and add that merge and feature to that. Track changes is another very good way of doing things. If I turn track changes on and put it out there, and this track changes works great for the multiple people doing simultaneously, but that's not a requirement. Track changes work just fine if it's just one person at a time. So I turn track changes on, and then later I can come back and I can see that Sally edited this cell and Bob edited this cell. It'll actually tell me who and when the changes were made. It's very cool because if you want to go through and approve the changes, it's sort of like spell check. You can go, how when you do spell check in a document, it pops up and says, "You want to accept this spelling?" You go, "Yeah." or you say no, I don't want to change that. I reject that. It's the same thing with track changes. It just pops them up and says, okay, you want to accept this, and you go yes. Most of the time you're going to be going, allow to go through them all and make all the ones. So when you're consolidating track changes, what you're essentially doing is flattening the document. Instead of having 15 revisions, when you're done with going through and consolidating all the track changes, you're back down to one copy of the document again, and you can turn right around and give it back out, and they can start making new changes. Okay. Again, I'm not gonna. It's difficult to show this without having a network and have multiple people going on. So just follow along in the book. I think you're being okay. So both the share workbook and the track changes and the merging operation, you're just going to have to look at the book, because I really can't. I'm in no position to demo it here in a video. But let's move on. On page 398, they talk about templates. Now, templates are kind of cool because somebody's taken the time and energy to go in and build something for you. Now, let me tell you, there's one particular template that I use a lot. So let's just go to File, New, and look at these templates. So one of the ones I use is the one called the calendar. So if I go to any year, there's one called calendar, and you go, all right, let's just do this. So I pull this thing down. Now this is an Excel spreadsheet. It looks pretty cool, doesn't it? It has all these little cells in here, and you can go in and add things and put comments in and all sorts of. This is a template. This particular thing here allows you to click through the years. It's a perpetual calendar, so it works forwards and backwards. I think it's a fantastic kind of a spreadsheet using a template. Now there's lots of them in there, and the samples they have are fantastic. If you go in here and you say new, they have what if like an expense report, for small businesses. They have one here, and here's an invoice as an example. I mean, these are gorgeous. They're well lined up. They look professional. All you have to do is just put your logo in and type in some stuff, and presto changeo, you've got an Excel spreadsheet that looks pretty doggone cool. Okay. Now let's say that I want to create a template. So I'm going to go here and this guy. I want to save this guy as a template. Okay. Now, admittedly, to make this a legitimate template, I would probably go in and take all the data out, right? Because the template part would only be like the heading, and it's sort of like the same concept of what you did when you had them all grouped together, right? None of the specific data, just the format and the cell formatting and all the rest of that kind of stuff is exactly the way you want it. So let's say I want to save this, pretend like this is legitimate, and I want to save this as a template. So I go File, and there's a Save As, and one of the things it asks you is the file type. Save as type. Now the default is save it as a worksheet. Makes sense to me, but you can do the pull down, and one of the things it says is an Excel template. An Excel template. And then I could call this whatever, and it's going to want to put it into a template directory, which is perfectly okay. I would highly recommend that you not go in there and start moving these things around. And so you save it. And so now you have a template that you created that you can use to do things. Okay. I'm not going to save that one because that's kind of dumb. But the cool thing about it, when you're using these templates, these templates are great. They're royalty free. They're excellent, nice looking stuff that Microsoft put together. When it comes off the the Office.com website, you can pretty much well guarantee that you're not going to have any issues, with copyright or anything like that. It's pretty straightforward. And if you go online and say I want more templates, there's tons and tons of people. I mean, let's say you're running a tire shop. I'm not kidding. You could probably go in there and put tire shop template, and you could find an Excel spreadsheet that somebody put together for running a tire shop. I mean, there's a lot of people out here using Microsoft Excel. So do poke around and look at this stuff. Okay. That is at the end, and I guess we'll see you guys again in some future chapter.